when, quotes, the rest of the world, end quotes, is obsessing about immigration to the point that incredible levels of misinformation are being swallowed wholesale by the public. And we'll have a little look at how the Daily Mail chose to report the gulf between facts and feelings this morning, the story that we talked about yesterday. What do you do if you're not obsessed by it? What do you do if you recognise that immigration is not the reason why inequality is rife in this country? What do you do if you recognise that the real problems lie with distribution of wealth and incredible pandering to privilege and capital? Do you just ignore all the noise that's going on around you, even as your fellow citizens, your fellow subjects of this realm are being turned into furious conduits for rage, discrimination, hatred, and, of course, increasingly, perhaps violence? Do you let your sensibilities steer you away from the subject matter because you know that it's been dominated by dangerous liars? And obviously, as I say those words out loud, of course you don't. You can't. It's tempting. Of course it's tempting, the lure of an easy life. I suppose for some people it's even tempting to join in. And to recognise the fact that it is so much easier to sell tickets for the ghost train than it is for the Speak Your Weight machine. So why wouldn't you join in this madness that has created a country in which 4% of people who come here do so irregularly, and yet huge swathes of the population believe that the number who come here irregularly is higher than the number who don't. So somehow 4% becomes 50, 60, 70%. I mean, it is madness, but that was yesterday's show. The question simply is, what decent people should do to address this warped narrative? The first answer to that question is obviously keep calling it a warped narrative. Keep pointing out the facts. Keep hitting the numbers. Keep relying on trusted sources. Keep telling the truth. But that only takes you so far, because government will sometimes do things that will delight the dangerous liars. And the dangerous liars call upon governments to do things. But that doesn't mean that all of those things are wrong. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but some of the voices, I think Keir Starmer is one of them, Yvette Cooper is one of them. The danger that they are pandering to the racist narrative regarding immigration is real, and it may be something that we discuss on the programme today. But here is the problem, right? I think I've worked it out. I think I've worked out what my problem is. Just this one problem. I've got 99 problems, but that ain't one. I think I've worked it out. And so on the one side, I mean, I don't think we can name names yet, but you're welcome to fill in the gaps yourself. There are clearly people in public life who are praying for more riots, whether they reach the editorial floors of national newspapers or the floor of the House of Commons. That's up to you. You take your own view on that. I've got my own view, but it would not be right to say at this point that so-and-so is clearly thirsting for more violence. Not in the context of public figures, but you can fill in the gaps yourself. Some people clearly want more violence. You can tell sometimes because they are championing people who called for pogroms last summer. Some fascinating research, by the way, published by Amnesty International today, showing the role that Elon Musk's platform played in the spreading of false narratives and harmful content which contributed to the racist violence against Muslim and migrant communities that we saw last summer. And I don't think it's controversial to say to you, there are people out there, some of whom are heavily involved in the dissemination of lies on Elon Musk's platform, who clearly welcome the racist violence against Muslim and migrant communities. And they are calling for the police to reveal more details of suspects in alleged crimes, okay? They are calling for the public to be given more information on the background of suspects. And Yvette Cooper has joined them, which means either that there are reasons to do this that do not involve thirsting for more racist violence, or Yvette Cooper is thirsting for more racist violence, or Yvette Cooper is bending over backwards to appease the people calling for racist violence. Is that fair? Do you think those are three analyses of why the actual Home Secretary would call for the police to reveal more information about suspects in crimes? Because A, she thinks it would achieve something positive. B, she agrees with the people who are thirsting for more racist violence. Or C, she's so frightened of the people thirsting for more racist violence that she has decided to throw them a bone. I'm going to run that through again because I'm thinking out loud with you here. So when a Home Secretary calls for something that is also being called for by precisely the same people who helped cause the racist riots last summer by using Elon Musk's platform to spread all manner of misinformation, lies and racist provocation, up to and including the people jailed for literally calling publicly for pogroms, for buildings full of human beings to be set fire to. Yvette Cooper is either on their side, which seems to me to be a ridiculous suggestion, sufficiently frightened of them to try to appease them by giving them something that they want, which seems to me to be, and we can have this argument, we will have this argument. Nathan thinks it's that simple. She is appeasing the right, nothing more, nothing less. I disagree. I think that is palpably absurd, actually, I would go as far as to suggest, but I could be wrong, and that's why today's phone-in is going to, I hope, be a very interesting one. Or thirdly, she thinks it's going to achieve something very different from what the people thirsting for more racist violence think. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because that analysis involves her and Starmer knowing the actual numbers. That analysis involves them knowing that if you were to release the ethnicity of people accused, for example, of sexual violence, then the overwhelming majority will be British-born men. That is a statistical certainty. You will get some variation demographically, caused largely by socioeconomic status, but of course you could manipulate it however you wished to look at asylum status, refugee status, star sign, geographical location, religious affiliation, whatever you wanted to. But the bottom line will be, as the rather splendid author who has turned his hand to fiction, I should tell you, latterly, has written this morning, the secret barrister who works in this field, writing that I prosecute and defend the most serious sexual offences in our courts. The overwhelming majority of offenders are British-born. Overwhelmingly, the victim is someone known to them, either a partner or relative. Anybody purporting to care about protecting women might start there. A timely moment to remind you, of course, that the Reform Party invited into Parliament, ushered into Parliament, a man who'd actually been jailed for battering his former girlfriend, and the leaders of that organisation then sought to defend the decision not to tell voters about it before the election took place. So the question of who is genuinely interested in protecting women becomes pertinent. The secret barrister goes on, there are significant problems with the way that sexual violence is dealt with in the criminal justice system. Chronic underreporting, I would add to that, unless it involves people of certain ethnicities or asylum statuses in which there is arguably chronic over-reporting. I would say there isn't chronic over-reporting, it's just that all the other reporting should catch up. Investigations take years. We're back to austerity and cuts. The court backlog, we're back to austerity and cuts, means several more years before a trial. Some complainants even give up and some prosecutions collapse. Don't let con artists and hate mongers distract from the real issues. So that is what I think is happening here. I think that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and others, including David Gauke and I think Dominic Grieve, people from both sides of the political divide in this country, I think they believe that if the information is given to the public, then the hugely disproportionate focus upon alleged offenders of a certain ethnicity or of from ethnic minorities, let's just put it that simply, regardless, I think, of asylum status, but we can bring that into it as well. So Starmer and Cooper and Gauke and Grieve are obviously hoping that if you give the actual information to the actual people, then they will arrive at actually different conclusions. They will realise that this is not the, quotes, tinderbox, end quotes, issue that many people thirsting for more violence want it to be or describe it to be. So, who's right? Because you remember the events in Liverpool a few months ago where the ethnicity of the suspect was immediately released with the, I think, fairly obvious intention of refuting the idea that the suspect was from an ethnic minority or a refugee. And I mean, it's a weird thing to say, and it's a live case, so we will say no more about it. But that decision to release biographical details about the suspect in the hope of preventing racist violence worked. But I said to you during the Southport tragedy, the murders in Southport, and in the immediate aftermath of that, when everybody focused so heavily upon the fact that lies had been spread by various public figures, I said to you then, what's the subtext here? You know, the fact that he was born in Wales and raised as a Christian, the murderer in that case, was cited as a reason why people shouldn't be rioting. But I said to you at the time, what if he hadn't been? What if he had been born overseas? What if he had sought asylum in this country? Would the people saying, don't riot because he's British, be silenced and compelled to argue, you can riot because he's not? That's glib. It's a little bit simplistic, but you understand the point that I'm making. We set so much store by the fact that this was not a man who fit any of the descriptions that the various liars on Elon Musk's platform and beyond claimed, that the possibility or the what would happen, the consequences if it had been true that he was an asylum seeker or that he was a Muslim or that he was a member of a currently heavily othered ethnic minority, would have somehow seemed to me like a green light to the people indulging in the racist violence. So, who do you think is right? Some people clearly want this information to be released by the police because they hope it will prompt more violence. And some people think that by releasing this information, and the massive majority of suspects in such cases will be British-born, they think that when those statistics get into the public space, the heat that is being very, very carefully stoked on this issue will diminish. And I don't know who's right. I worry about right-wing politicians, most obviously Kemi Badenoch, being terminally online. She seems to plan her every move and wiggle according to what is happening on social media. Honest Bob Jenrick similarly. But I worry that the other lot are too detached from it. They don't understand the tidal waves of filth and hatred that are washing up on our screens and across our country, put there by people who are motivated by the worst of instincts, the very, very worst of us. And those are the people, perhaps, who are the sensibles in this case, the ones who are saying, no, look, everything's getting very, very heated. If people actually knew the truth, then things would be less heated. But this is a country in which people have been successfully persuaded that the majority of migration is illegal, when the actual proportion is 4% of the total. And there's even, I think, a debate to be had about the use of the word illegal in that context, because the massive majority of them have their asylum applications approved. They are found to be worthy and deserving recipients of refugee status. So we have got an incredible tension upon which public safety depends. Who is right? The people who think that you should release more details of a suspect's ethnicity because the way that the press and some politicians have sought to pretend that people from ethnic minorities are massively overrepresented in these crimes, or the people who, I think we can say with full confidence, really, really want every accusation levelled against an asylum seeker or a member of an ethnic minority to be trumpeted from the rooftops because they think it will be a clarion call for more racist violence. And I don't know who's right. The people who think that the facts will matter, or the people who think that the feelings will be stoked by selective dissemination of certain facts? That's all I've got, actually. I haven't got a pivotal question for you. I haven't got a... Well, I mean, the question is who is right, but I hope I've successfully described the two camps. One contains sensible people, one contains dangerous liars, and they are calling for the same thing for very different reasons. Whose reasons do you think are more likely to be proved true? The people who think this will diffuse racist propaganda, or the people who think it will increase the likelihood of racist violence? There you go. I'm sometimes a bit hard on myself. That's a perfect question. That's neat, it's distilled, and it's straightforward. Two groups of people calling for exactly the same thing. More information about suspects in crimes to be released to the public, chiefly with regard to ethnicity and asylum status. Who do you think is right? The people who think it will diffuse the very carefully stoked atmosphere that we're living in at the moment, or the people who are clearly hoping that it will tip things over the edge and cause more violence?